Hello, I'm Martin Lewis of MoneySavingExpert.com, and this is my video briefing on the new coronavirus self-employed income support scheme. Clearly, the state's been struggling to set this one up, both defining what is income for the self-employed. Is it turnover? Is it profit? Do we count dividends? And also, how do you do this when, unlike employees who are either working or they're not, self-employed people, what counts as work? So they've come up with a scheme which is arbitrary. They've had to do so. But that means there are holes in it, and there are some people who won't get support and will feel it's very unfair. It's quite a tough one, but let me run you through it anyway. Okay, the first thing is, it will pay you up to 80% of profits to a maximum of £2,500 a month. Now, this is a grant, not a loan, so it is not repayable. It is taxable income though. So, for example, if this pushed you into that higher rate tax band, they would claw back the 40% of it and the national insurance on top, which is, you can understand why the state's done that. So what are we talking about when we say profits? Well, it's a 3-year mean average profit of your earnings up to the 2018-19 tax year, the tax year that ended on the 5th of April 2019. So just to be absolutely clear, that's the 2016-17 tax year, the 2017-18 tax year, and the 2018-19 tax year. And it's an average of those years. If you only have 2 years, they will do it an average of 2 years. 1 year, they'll do an average of 1 year. Where it gets trickier is, say you set up your business in the last 6 months of April of the 2018-19 tax year, and you earned £10,000. Well, they won't pro-rata that. They're doing this by the year. So you've got £10,000 of earnings in that year. They'll count that, even though you only work for 6 months, as your earnings for the entire year, and it'd be profit based on that £10,000, not on £20,000, which you would have got if they pro-rated it. You are only eligible for this scheme if 50% or more of your earnings come from self-employment. If it's less, you don't count. However, interestingly, unlike the employer scheme, with the self-employed scheme, you are eligible for this money, for this grant, even if you are still working. They want to keep your business going. So that means effectively they're helping people who have no work and whose work has been reduced on the back of coronavirus. They are also technically making money available for those people whose business has not been hit on the back of this. I'll leave the moral decision up to you as whether you would take the money in that case. But it is quite an interesting difference here, which is probably why they've got more strict cut-offs here than on the employee scheme. The lump sum will be paid in June. That's very late. They might push that earlier. And as for the amount, well, as it's based on a previous average, on the average of previous years, simply you're going to get a quarter of that average. So we could say it pays you for March, April and May. It doesn't really work like that. You're going to get a lump sum payout in one of a quarter of the average over the 3 tax years. I hope you're still following me. So let me ask myself some of the questions that you've been asking me. Sorry if it's a bit clumsy to do it this way, but clearly in these times, sitting at home by myself, I haven't got anyone to ask it me. So first question, what about people who have set up firms since 2019? No. As far as the Treasury have told me, and I've pushed on this question, there is no help. I know there was slightly a confusing answer about this on Question Time last night. Then again, if you were watching that, you should have been watching my show on ITV and it would have been much simpler there. But I think what may have been referred to there is the fact that if you had part year's help before 2019, you can get money here. But as the Treasury have confirmed to me, unless they're going to change their guidance, if you have only been self-employed since April the 6th, 2019, you are not eligible for money due in this scheme. Lots of people have asked me, what about freelancers who earn via PAYE? What about agency workers? What about umbrella companies? Well, in all of those cases, most people, as far as I am aware, earn through the payroll PAYE. That means you are not eligible for this scheme, but you are eligible for the employees' furlough scheme, which is where the person who does the payroll, the employee who does the payroll, can go to the government and say, furlough this person, they won't work, and they will get 80% of their income up to £2,500. Now, in the employees scheme, again, not the self-employed scheme, that income is defined generally as what you earned in the February, but I'm hearing that there's some wriggle room coming in the guidance that if you had a particularly bad February, you've got they can look at how February contrasted to your income over the previous 12 months, but that one is still being finessed at the moment. Now, the problem is I know many agencies and many umbrella workers and many freelancers are going, well, who do I ask? Well, if you're a freelancer and you work for lots of different people in February, go to all of them. They could all furlough you based on that. If you work for one firm, it's who you work for in February that counts. If you're an agency worker or an umbrella in an umbrella company, push that company. It can furlough you. Just to explain the furlough, the key thing about the furloughing, which is this technical term for when you're not working, is effectively what the state has done has created businesses as the new welfare state, the new social security. And it has given them the freedom to furlough people, and it wants people to do that. They're not cheating the system by doing that. This isn't like normal times where they want to try and narrow the funnel of who gets benefits. They want to make sure as many people as possible have their income supported so the economy doesn't collapse. So show them this video. Tell them that they can furlough you. Agencies, umbrella companies, if you're paying people by PAYE, the guidance I'm getting, forget the official guidance, is if you want to furlough them, if there's a need to furlough them because people can't work, you can furlough them. The next question, what about those working via limited companies who get dividends and PAYE? Not so good news here. Your dividends are simply not covered. The reason why I'm being told is it's difficult to separate the dividends you get from your own company from the dividends that you get from actual shares. I'll leave you to decide that one, but that was the answer I heard about it anyway. So if you are PAYE, well, you may be able to be furloughed through your PAYE element, but of course I know many people who have limited companies tend to pay themselves more dividends and less PAYE. Well, you're one of the holes in the system. I'm sorry. That's just what they've decided to do. You may want to be lobbying through the various business organisations to see what can be done to help, certainly if you're desperate. So the next question is, what about people who aren't eligible, including those in limited companies? Well, you can look at some of the business interruption loans. Remember, there are lots of different types and they're done by different lenders who may have different attitudes to the finance. So do look what's available. They run from proper loans into just short-term overdrafts. They're backed by the government, so the lenders should help you. You've got the fact that you don't have to pay your July tax self-assessment payment. So hopefully you've been doing what is good practice if you're self-employed, have a separate tax pot. You may be able to use that in the short term. It's never good advice to do it particularly, but currently cash flow to keep yourself going and to keep food on the table is important. And then there's universal credit. And a lot of people are poo-pooing universal credit because what they got, the message last week was it's only going up by £1,000 a month. But the changes are much bigger than that if you're self-employed. First of all, it is £1,000 a year, not £1,000 a month, I'm sorry. It's going up by £1,000 a year. First of all, they've changed the housing payment. It's unfrozen. And that can mean the amount that you get for housing being from £300 a month to £500–600 a month in some cases. So there's a big change to the possible payment you get for housing. What you get on housing depends on where you live and your costs, but there's a housing payment element to this if you're renting. If you're not renting, it's support through mortgage interest that you would have to pay. Secondly, they've got rid of the minimum income floor, which basically means what you've earned as someone who is self-employed doesn't really matter for universal credit right now. It's how much savings you've got. If you've got more than 16,000 savings, they're expecting you to use them. If you've got less, then you will get income support if you qualify in all the other ways. Sorry for doing the caveats. Hopefully you understand where I'm going. So my advice is apply for income support. What they will do is they will look at how much money you've got and what you need, and they'll give you an amount. Now, I know many self-employed people who work very hard and they're looking after their own businesses. You're probably going to be disappointed with the amount. But if they give you £300 a month, it's £300 a month. It will help to an extent. If they give you £1,800 a month, it's tax-free, remember, universal credit payments. Well, that could help quite a lot in many people's cases. And while the money isn't paid for 5 weeks, what happens at the moment is you'll apply for universal credit and then you'll get a call back afterwards and you can ask them to advance you the money, which can come in days if you're struggling right now. Final question. Well, lots of people saying to me, I'm not going to get the money for June. What do I do in the meantime? Well, it's easier for you. You use, hopefully, money you put aside for your tax and you repay that in June with the payment that comes in June, and you get on universal credit in the meantime. You can apply for both systems. There is no problem doing that. I hope I've addressed most of your questions. I'm sorry for those who fall outside the gap on this. You're going to have to look at other support mechanisms. For those who are eligible for this, and if you need the help, well, the state says they will get in touch with you over the scheme. Apply for the other things that are available meantime. That's it from me. Most importantly to say, we will be constantly updating the guides on Money Saving Expert. If you've got questions that I haven't covered in here, then please put the questions and the team and I will be looking at them and trying to keep the thing updated on this and all the other coronavirus issues. Take care of yourselves, stay safe, stay inside if you possibly can. Not inside, stay in the house if you possibly can. Oh, I got it wrong again. I'm very, very tired. I'm going to give you my Jerry's final thought again. Stay safe. Stay at home if you possibly can. Goodbye.